Okay, we're going to get started. We're actually going to start out with a poll everywhere. So I'm going to dim the lights in the front because it's a little bit hard to see. Can everybody see that? Anybody having trouble seeing it?
So to start out, I'm Katie Dunlap, and I'm the Deputy Superintendent for Standards and Assessment. This is Craig Walker, who's our Executive Director for Assessment. So we are going to talk about a lot today, a little bit about, well, the changes that are next year. We're also going to talk about some legislation, both federal and state. And these pieces of legislation require that we have a lot of input from across the state. So this poll everywhere, if you were in the general session, this gives you an opportunity to give your input.
Okay, so if you connect to the Wi-Fi, you can go to pollev.com/engage2, and the survey will populate for you. Or conversely, you can text engage2 to 22333.
If your text works, that's really
Yeah, it is. If your text works, you'll get a kickback from Poll Everywhere, and you don't respond to that. You actually can start answering by typing in A, B, C, or D. So the first question is a demographic question. What is your role? So A, school administrator, B, teacher, C, paraprofessional, D, specialized instructional support personnel, E, community member, F, parent, G, business leader, H, student, and I, other. Make sure you're in the right poll, because if you're in the SDE, the /SDE poll, it's a different poll. So make sure that if you're using the web browser version and it doesn't look like this, that it's pollev.com/engage2.
Is anybody having trouble?
Should there be, on mine, there's a counselor spot.
Yeah, that's the wrong poll, so you'll need to go in and type it in again.
Raise your hand if you need help. Come on out. You can't text.
Is somebody having trouble?
Right back here. Are they on Wi-Fi or internet?
Either way.
We're telling them it's
do either.
easier to text in some ways if you have connectivity on your phone.
I did. Okay, I texted. Okay.
Oh, there you
Now
go.
what?
Now you typed in B, so that populated up there.
So I'm okay.
You're good. Yep.
Type in this, then you type in your text,
Yep.
engage to, and
So
send
if
that.
you're texting, you won't see
Right.
that.
So,
Okay.
so if you're texting, you won't see the poll in your phone. It's up there. If you're on the web browser version, the poll will be on your phone.
If you're a counselor /
You can
since it's not on this.
other would be fine.
So the reason that these particular demographic requests are here is because actually that's what's in the law for ESSA. This is input that we need according to every Student Succeeds Act, the new No Child Left Behind.
Correct. You just type in the letter to respond. You don't follow the link that is sent to you on the text.
Yeah.
You just type in the letter.
If you're more than one, if you're a teacher and a parent, you do both.
This one's a pick one. There will be ones in later on that you will be able to select.
Okay.
Okay. Well, we still got some movement. Okay, we're moving forward. What community school type do you represent? A, suburban, B, rural, C, urban, or D, virtual? Yeah, because we could go full screen. It made a huge difference. Okay, moving on in about 5 seconds. Okay. All right, what part of Oklahoma do you represent? A, northwest, B, northeast, C, southwest, D, southeast, or E, central? Okay, about 5 more seconds. What groups are you a representative for? Select all that apply. And so if you're texting, the way you select additional is you type A, comma, B, comma, C. And that will populate all 3 of your answers. And A is students with disabilities, B is English language learners, C is higher ed, D is career technology center, E is Indian tribes, F charter schools, G early education organizations, and H licensing organizations. Okay, about 5 more seconds. Okay, now these next couple questions are assessment literacy questions. So there is a right answer. True or false, a norm reference test compares students' capabilities to a sample population in a similar group. A, true, B, false.
So the reason we're asking some of these is to make you familiar with these terms. Some of you already know them. But because the state law specifically mentions that we look at these in assessment systems. So.
Okay. So the correct answer is A, true. All right. True. True, false. A criterion reference test provides information on students' mastery of skills or academic standards. A, true, B, false. Okay, the correct answer is true.
So what is the criterion in a criterion reference test in Oklahoma and in most? What do you think the criterion is?
They said standards.
The standards?
State
Yeah,
standards.
so the criterion that we're testing against is the standards, the state academic standards.
A blank test will provide a percentile ranking for each student. A, norm reference, B, criterion reference, or C, both. Okay, the correct answer is actually C, both. Although our tests are standards-based, we do have impact data on the criterion reference, but the cut is not determined on that, so it is different in that sense. But we can pull a Oklahoma sample and give percentile rankings. Which of the following measure college readiness? Select all that apply. A, GPA class rank. B, advanced coursework. C, college entrance exam. D, Oklahoma school testing program. Or E, other.
And this is one, if you're texting, just type A, comma, C, comma, just put a comma between your answers if you're texting.
Okay.
And so there, the correct answer is really any of those can help contribute if you use them appropriately. Obviously, if a student has a higher GPA, they perhaps are demonstrating motivation. If they've done some advanced coursework, they may have taken the courses that make them college ready, and so on.
Which of the following measure career readiness? A, industry certification, B, career pathway assessment, C, Oklahoma school testing program, D, state graduation requirement completed, E, internship apprenticeship, F, other.
And so some of you may know, we have a grant this year called the New Skills for Youth Grant, and we have a planning grant, and we hope to win the bigger grant. But it would look at pulling together all the different groups in Oklahoma that talk about career pathways, career and college pathways, and really looking at some of this information. And we are linking up with all of the workforce groups in Oklahoma across all the different regions. So Southeastern Oklahoma has some reps that are on some of this, but it looks at, how do we make sure that every student leaves high school prepared for college and or career. And so we've of course been emphasizing the college, but now this looks at expanding, some focus on career to really help those students that are going that direction. So this grant is really useful in looking and pulling together indicators and information, so you'll be hearing more about it.
And I'd kind of like to know, if you don't mind sharing other, what are some of your thoughts on other for measuring career readiness? Anybody? No? What tests would you prefer students to take for college and career readiness? Select all that apply. And so if you want multiple answers, A, comma, B, comma, C if you're texting. A, ACT, SAT, B, Oklahoma School Testing Program, C, Iowa Test of Basic Skills, D, NWEA assessments, or E, other.
So this is an interesting one too. So for the Oklahoma School Testing Program in 3 through 8 and 10, as we move to this transition year of 16, 17, one of the targets or one of the goals we have is to articulate our assessments as our standards are articulated 3 through 8. We're skipping 9, but then 10, and then we'll again plan to give a pilot college and career readiness test. So all of that is a progression through, it follows our standards that progress if your students learn the standards, which of course have to be supported with curriculum frameworks and all the other things. But then the assessments will measure that, and they should demonstrate a college and career readiness. We're also starting to report this year. How many of you know what Lexile are? Okay, so we've used Lexiles in Oklahoma, and this year your students will receive Lexile scores. But starting next year, we're going to use both Lexile and Quantile scores. Quantiles will provide you math links to resources to show what, according to your student scale score, what kinds of resources do they need if they're behind to help catch up, or if they're advanced, what kinds of resources they can use. And the other good thing about Lexiles and Quantiles is that now they've been used so widely across the United States that we can get where we are on the scale on the Oklahoma state average, and we can compare that to other states, so it can give us state comparability. And finally, they've also developed some, again, using those scales, you can say, well, your child or your student it looks like from this score, they are college ready. Or it looks like from this score, these are the types of careers that this student has the skills to be able to head toward. So there'll be some really good information coming from that at the end of next year.
What tests would you prefer students take for school accountability purposes? A, ACT, SAT, B, Oklahoma School Testing Program, C, Iowa Test of Basic Skills, D, NWA assessments, or E, other?
So for school accountability, remember that we have to include all children in the assessment if they are used for school accountability. So the only students that take something else take the
The 1%.
what
Yeah.
other tests do some of our students
The
take?
OAP.
The OAP, which right now is an ELM or social studies anyway. So yes, so 1% of our students approximately take the OAP, but all the rest will need to take whatever assessment you identify for accountability. So you need to think about accessibility on assessments for everybody, what kinds of accommodations each of these offer, all those kinds of things.
For the purpose of the summative reporting, when would be most beneficial to receive those reports? End of year, A, beginning of the next school year, B. How do you think schools should use state assessment results to support student success? Select all that apply. A, remediation class enrollment. B, advanced placement enrollment. C, create an individual student plan of learning. Or D, I don't know. How do you think schools should use state assessment results to strengthen teacher quality and instruction? Select all that apply. A, planning for professional development. B, curriculum and instruction development. C, include it in the teacher evaluation process. Or D, I don't know.
So we're into the opinion part.
Yeah. Okay. At what grade level should students begin taking computer-based assessments? A, 3rd grade, B, 4th grade, C, 5th grade, D, keep as is with 6th grade. How do we best ensure student accountability on state assessments? A, put results on transcript. B, include in student's grade. C, include in the student's GPA. Or D, local decision. Okay. At what performance level should students be provided remediation? A, unsat, B, limited knowledge, C, limited knowledge and unsat, or D, leave it up to local decision? What is the purpose of the Oklahoma School Testing Program? Select all that apply. A, to measure progress toward college and career readiness. B, to indicate the need for remediation. C, to determine proficiency-based promotion. Or D, to be included in the student's GPA calculation. What recommendations would you give to promote an effective and efficient testing system? Select all that apply. A, eliminate writing prompts and open-ended responses from state assessments. B, combine different contents into one assessment. C, combine different grade levels into one assessment. Or D, add additional subject area assessments. Should state assessment results show how our students compare to other states? A, yes. B, no. Okay, thank you for your input. Do you want to talk a bit, just a smidge about House Bill, the study? I'm going to skip all that and go to the programmatic changes.
Oh, okay, so, we have two laws, which everything is sort of happening at once, which is good in some ways, because Oklahoma needs to reach, a place where we have several years where we teach the same standards, and we have the same assessments of the same standards. So in a way, it's good that, all these laws have happened at once, so that we can really all come together and decide what is our best approach going forward. So first of all, ESSA, or ESEA, actually, the Elementary Secondary School Act, was reauthorized this year, and it used to be, as you know, No Child Left Behind. Now it is Every Student Succeeds Act, which is ESSA. And this, of course, is what your Title I and all the federal dollars come. It also has all of the requirements for accountability and assessment in it. And so, we're looking at a number of changes and things that will happen with both of those, all of that, and actually that's in here in a slide in a minute. In House Bill, meanwhile, at the state level, we argued that for a year, in order to get to our new standards and new assessments, we needed a transition year. So this year is an unusual year, and it has to be that way, in part because when you have new standards and new assessments, you have to set proficiency levels, new cut scores, right? So after we get all the testing scores back, our testing company will put everything together and produce a research file, and have data so that groups of teachers, we always have teachers come in, and work on what's called standard setting. And that's where we look at cut scores. Cut scores include things like what time in the school year are you assessing? Is it right at the end? Well, then you'd expect everybody to know the whole fourth grade curriculum, right? If you're assessing maybe a month before the end, then maybe you need to consider that in your standard setting. But so the standards will be set this summer, and then we will also be having to use this new data to set our new baseline for federal reporting. So to kind of give you an overview, if you know ESSA, it's really targeting Title I, which is mostly to do what? Provide support for whom? Low income, disadvantaged, English language learners. It's a recognition that teaching kids in these circumstances sometimes require more resources. So Title I money's always been there to help provide more resources for specific children. We also have to, they want to see, well, we're giving this money, so now we want to hold schools accountable, of course. So that is where the school accountability comes in. And in the past, Oklahoma, and we still have in law, the A through F, so that is, how that's calculated is going to need to change depending on input that we receive from groups across the state about how do we determine what a good school is? What is a quality school? Is it one who provides lots of opportunities for all kids, or what is a good school? So those are the kinds of things that we're trying to get input from a lot of different people, parents, business leaders, teachers, educators, that can look at that and begin to. It's not an easy question, as you know. So those are kind of some of the law changes at the federal level. But just to talk a little bit more about 3218, which is our House bill, we have the one transition year. Do you want me to go into what's in that, or?
No, I'm going to talk about kind of what happened to the program,
Okay, so
because I think that's what they want to
The
know.
part you really want me to talk about is, the reason we did the poll is that part of House Bill 3218 requires us to get public input. And it requires us to have a study and a task. We're putting together a task force. We're going to take all this poll information and aggregate it. This is part of the information we will be presenting to the task force. They'll have some experts come in and talk about what are best practices in assessment. And all of this group needs to come together and make a recommendation to the state board by October 31st for what our assessment system will look like starting in 17-18. So 2017-18. So right now, then you're going to get into it. So that's what the task force is going to do.
So we know what's going to happen for 16-17. We won't know what's going to happen for 17-18 until the end of the year when we send the report through the board and the legislature decides on what's going to happen, because it all has to go through the legislative process. But I'm going to talk about what actually happens to the program this year based on House Bill 3218. So for 3 through 8, all the social studies tests are gone. So your grade 5, your grade 7, your grade 8 social studies tests are gone. The writing tests for 5 and 8 are gone. And for EOI, huge changes. It repeals end of instruction exams. So it basically decoupled any testing from graduation requirements. So next year we will have a grade 10 assessment suite. So if a student is enrolled in grade 10, they will be taking the grade 10 math, the grade 10 science, and the grade 10 ELA test. In the law, they also threw back in U.S. history. So that will be similar to an EOI in the sense of a student enrolled in a course for U.S. history will take the end of instruction.
Well, or end of year.
Or end of year, same difference. They'll take that test, okay? So if it doesn't matter what grade they're in, they'll take it. And then also it gave us the opportunity to offer a college and career readiness assessment, which we are working on an RFP, which should be out soon. So we can't tell you right now what exactly that test would be, but it will be similar to an ACT or an SAT. Good thing, yes.
So you're telling me this school year, the 10th graders will be testing in those subjects?
Correct.
Okay. So most freshmen take EOI Algebra 1.
Yes.
So they still have to retest again in
No.
math.
Yes, they do. Yep. And it'll be
Have you been asked that
it'll
question
yeah
before?
it'll be integrated. So the new the ELA and math blueprints are posted online.
Okay.
So they're on the assessment webpage, and so are the science. So everything is out there right now to get ready for next year.
It's also in the booklet you have, the
Yeah.
blueprint.
Yeah, the blueprints are in the booklet. So while we're talking about the blueprints in the booklet, if you don't mind moving to the ELA grade 10 blueprint and the the math grade 10 blueprint, they're toward the back. There's kind of a little printing error from color. The color bled. So you'll notice that the grade 10 math looks like 80 items. It is not 80. That's actually a 6. So if you'll mark in your book, that's a 6. And the same thing with the grade 10 ELA. It looks like an 81. It's a 61.
So it's the blue page for the math. We have some people that don't have them.
There's some in the back.
Okay. All right, so I just want to talk about testing windows as well. So our winter try window, we will not have anymore. We won't have any, there will be no retesting next year, no retest windows, no summer window. There will be one spring window, and that's it. One window. Okay? So that's a huge deal. Yes, ma'am.
Question. Okay, so if you have students, let's say in the 9th grade were advanced and they've already taken those tests because they took, are they going to be retested again?
Yes.
They have to be tested in high school for federal requirements.
Yep.
Yes.
Let me give you the infographic. So
But they won't be taking an algebra 2, they won't be taking a geometry, or obviously they've already taken the algebra 1.
right, it'll be a
We're going to take a geometry.
right, it'll be comprehensive.
We're going to talk about, or you're already at that screen, okay, great.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah. So now the only caveat to that is the science test, the biology EOI. So if they took the biology EOI in 9th grade, they can be exempt for the grade 10 science test. And it'll be put in our pre-code that way, but they'll have to have a valid biology EOI score, meaning they have an OPI score of between 400 and 999. If they have a DNA, if they have an exemption, they still have to take the test. That will not remove them from the pre-code. So we're going to program that in the pre-code, and it'll pull all students that do not have that biology EOI and put them in for testing for spring.
So if you look at the blueprint, you'll see that the biology blueprint is the same. We have the same, but the math
Test.
grade 10 is a different blueprint than the algebra 1 because it has geometry. So it is different. But it has geometry. If you remember, the math standards go all the way through. And so pre-algebra starts now what? In what grade? 8th grade. So those skills will be built all the way up.
Okay, so I'm going to come in, and I know we've got some people in the other room that are seeing us on camera. So we've got an overflow crowd over in the other room, so we're glad everybody's there. So I want to take a minute to explain to you some of the things that are coming. And it is really going to be a challenge. So you've already started to bring up some of the issues of a transition year. We had really a good thing happen, and that is a repeal of the end of instruction exams. But you can't just jump to the next thing unless that was going to all be decided in a 2-week period or less during legislative session. We don't want that. So what we proposed was a transition year, and what we have to do is have federal requirements satisfied. And then during that time, we work with you to gain your feedback, which today we want part of that. And then we'll be working with technical advisory teams, those that are also being represented throughout the state on a variety of others, as well as open to the public online surveying with open comments so that we can get those comments from you as well. But we also have to recognize that during the transition, there is just going to be things that just don't seem fair or don't make sense, but we have to think in terms of where we want to go, and it's coming at a time that is actually optimal with the changes in ESSA, as well as requirements to change because we have new standards. We have then new standard setting process with new tests that have to occur as well. And with that comes also more time that it's going to take to do that. So this is kind of the bad news that I want to share, and I wanted to be the one to do it because it's really something that's unavoidable, and we're not going to make the decision without your input. So in a second, not yet, you can put up that one screen though if you want that has the final screen before we get to the three options. This one. Okay, so I will step, I don't know if I step this way, if you can still see it or not. You may not be able to see that screen honestly in the room, so all of this will be available online. But what you need to understand is that when you go through a standard setting, of course the cut score setting process, normally it's just one subject in a school year. And this year it's 3. So it's lengthened in a process that can't even begin until after all the tests come back. So there is a longer task that has to happen after those tests come back than just normally giving back test results with preliminary results and then later the final results. And so what we've had to do is work through different scenarios and options, and I wasn't comfortable with the department making that determination without really hearing from you, because we have differences in rural schools, in urban settings, and in our suburban classrooms in being able to test an entire grade level, because it's 10th graders, you know, giving a test to them instead of just the way we've done it before, even though it was 7 separate tests, 7 tests in every unit of study. So it was either time period, like semesters, trimesters, block schedules, plus a makeup, you know, window as well, or not a makeup, but a retest window as well. So just in one of those semesters or trimesters, we're talking about 14 tests, okay? And so then you multiply that by how many times a year, and we just now, you know, winter, spring, summer, then we start again in the fall. We have this testing culture. So we're breaking that cycle and changing to one event that occurs to satisfy federal requirements in 10th grade, so that we weren't adding to ACT in the 11th grade. But we're also doing it at a time in 10th when there's still an opportunity to change the trajectory for kids while there's still 2 years left, okay? But the results aren't going to come back very fast, and you're not going to be happy about it. So we're going to show you 3. The first one is and by the way, you can take pictures of this, but we really don't want you putting this on social media, because this is not probably going to happen, okay? But this is option 1. This is the shorter window and a earlier start. So this gets, and for those of you who cannot see, this is RSA reporting coming back in June, and that's like, this is the best scenario, by the way. You're probably not even going to want this option, but this is the best scenario for getting things back. Preliminary results, August. Okay, shocking. Just wait till we see the next slides. Okay, brace yourself. Final reports in September, paper reports in October. Obviously, the A through F grading card is not coming back like we're used to at being announced in October or anything like that. And it isn't due to the U.S. Department of Education until the last day of December. So we have time. But remember, we're also, because of ESSA and new state law, going to be redoing that system as well. So all of this is happening at once. There really isn't a better time to do it, or we would always be lagging with a system that doesn't quite mesh what we're trying to do with testing. So we just have to brace ourselves yet again, but think about it as something good is really coming when this is over, okay? And so that is why we call it a transition year. And then at the federal level, we have to also have our state plan, which is going to include these pieces. What will our assessment be? What will our accountability be? A variety of other, you know, strategic plans. And so it'll all be thought through and aligned, you know, and I think that's a positive thing. All right, so that's option 1. This is all available online. If you're a testing coordinator or a superintendent, you already have this link in your inbox. So you already knew the bad news, probably.
I've
If
already
you-
seen it.
You have, okay. And so others are certainly, we want your feedback. But we know those are two that we really need feedback. Option two, this just lengthens the testing window, okay, a little bit. But it has an earlier start. There are some things that we need to notice here. Preliminary results, September. Preliminary, okay? So that's a difference in thinking. This is a 1-year thing, okay? Look how late this gets back. But RSA June. So let's talk about this one, because this is kind of still probably the, well, go to the next slide. You're not going to probably want this one. It's the way we did it last year, okay? It's what we did last year. So if we were to keep it same start date, same length, look how late you're getting all this. This is October for preliminary results. That's absurd, okay? So we realize we have to change what we've done. And so could you go back to option 2 for me? All right, so let's talk about this RSA window. And what was it in option 1?
June.
Still June, okay. So the reason that that second option extends the time just a little bit is the thinking is in some schools we can't get all 10th graders through. And some people have said, can we test all the 10th graders at one, you know, like an ACT? Yeah. And you do it at one time. The issue on that, now in the future, we may be going. The stakeholder input may say, let's do ACT, you know, or college readiness. We can't be vendor specific. It does have to go out to bid, and maybe SAT wins the bid. It's blind, so we won't know that. But the ACT does not test our standards. And so this year where we have to give the feds a assessment that tests our standards and all of our standards, it is going to be also a lengthier test because it's setting the baseline, and it's also going to be used for that the standard setting process, which is the cut score setting. Many of you think of it in terms of cut score setting. We don't do that. That's actually done through OEQA. It's a different agency. Law changed in 2012 to take that away from the department. And so that is handled independently. So the process, though, involves stakeholder communities of expertise. And that piece, I want you to think about, it can't start till everybody's tests are back. This year, you know, we had about 100 districts that didn't have their tests back on time. And some of them were legitimate reasons, like the FedEx truck, it fell off the truck and was found by someone on the side of the road. I mean, there's things that happen. And we should just collect a little book of those. And maybe, you know, who knows, fund the whatever. But as far as ACT, let's say, being a proxy for the federal requirements, that may be something with stakeholder engagement, and that's why you're here today. We want to hear from you if you're supportive of that. But that has to go to peer review. And that's a process that the U.S. Department of Education has to say, yes, we believe your ACT is a test of your standards. And it's very extensive. Actually, Dr. Dunlap, who worked for USDE, also was a national peer reviewer in a much earlier time, or another. Well, no. She's done everything.
A few years ago.
Okay, a few years ago. I wasn't sure the timeline on that. But peer review hasn't been done in so long. That's what I was thinking of. You know, No Child Left Behind changed that. So we're back to peer review in that setting. So back to what, now I remember what I was going to say. We have longer tests. Here's why. A little bit longer. You have to be able to have on each standard a test question that has a high, on target, and a low. And then you're able to start setting cut scores based on, so where are kids? Where are we as a state? Where should we be? Then we also are wanting to be able to give rich feedback on how to help support the bottom quartile of our students that are underperforming. So that's really the value that we're going to get back from this 10th grade test, but also 3rd through 8th. And we're only giving tests that are federally required, with the exception of U.S. history. And the reason for that is, and we think that's a very important test, but the reason it is in there, it was not a part of our original plan, so we didn't have it factored into our proposal. We presented a 15-page legislative bill, and it came back at 76 pages, and they added that Okay, so we really hadn't figured how do we deal with this, but we're happy we're getting this, so we're gonna make it work. And so this is something that the stakeholder folks may say, we want that still. That's to be determined, okay? So when you have standard setting on a more extensive test as well, the CAT score setting and all of that work is gonna be more involved. And it's math, English language arts, in every grade level, pre-K on up, you know, that we have these standards. So everywhere we're testing that, plus science in the 3 bands that we have to test in. So can you kind of help us when people say, I can't believe? Well, you just help fill in the blank on what the backstory is a little bit. If you can help us, that's helpful. Then we really need you to sit down with your calendars at school and figure out what really is the best for our school. And if it really surprises us and the third option is what people need, we'll do what you need. Our guess is that the first option is just likely not, it's just too short to get everybody through that. And you do not have to test the 10th grade test all in one sitting. Just like the ACT is a singular test, but it has 4 subject content areas. They allow accommodations for certain students to be broken up into 4 days. And that is something that we want you to have that same flexibility. That's just based on your school decision, on what works the best for your schools and how to deliver that 10th grade test. But all those results will test the new standards. They will be in the new accountability system. The good news about that is this is the best year to do this because we have a waiver right now with our A through F accountability system with the feds that say it's a kind of a freeze on your designations. And they're giving us that kind of a waiver to not add anyone or make that, you can come off but not add anyone on during this year of transition. Okay, so hope I'm helping you with a little bit of that. I also think that if you will give us that feedback as fast as possible, we'll close that survey at the end of July. It's not very long, but we need to get those schedules posted for folks the 1st of August, okay? And we really appreciate that. Then, the last thing I want to mention, and I'll turn this back over to you or ask you for any questions. RSA, let's talk about that. This is certainly going to be, I think, top of mind for everyone that's not in a high school when they think about these test windows and the return of school information or information to schools. RSA, best practices now, really, we have the opportunity to utilize multiple opportunities for our 3rd graders. And I am finding as we're going around that some people are not aware of the change in the law that allows for us to examine how students are doing all the way up through that point that they take it. Let's say even the earliest they could, which would be right after spring break. They can pass that and show proficiency earlier. And as long as we know that, then this is just another assessment, but it is not the high stakes we have often thought of that we've wrapped that concept around. That's been changed. And then if you were to take it on the earlier time, the CUT score standard setting process takes into account when the test was taken in 3rd grade. So help others understand that. It's not going to judge them on where they should be at the last day of school. It's based on when tests are taken. So that applies to everything that we're taking, okay? That it's based on that pacing, that is the expected pacing for students in 3rd or whichever class. Am I right on that for all subjects, not just 3rd? Okay. Okay, so just help, we have a lot of educating to do, I think, to alleviate some fear, but no doubt, this is like, going through something that is hard work and toil and not optimal, but at the end, it's worth it. And I hope that you can kind of embrace it and help others get through this with strategies on how you might be doing things. If you have something that you find is really working, even in messaging, we would appreciate that. But I'm sure you have a lot of questions, and I will turn this back over and let them answer.
I
Okay,
did
thanks.
want to just make one point, and because when you mentioned stories, yes, I have a lot of good stories about what's happened in assessment over the world, and over the years, and one story from last year is we do not time our state assessments. The idea being that makes them more accessible to more students. So that's unlike an ACT, which is timed, and that's one reason it's shorter too. Anyway, we don't time, so this year we had somebody who tested a student for 12 hours.
Yeah.
And One test, one assessment, and they wanted to resume the next day. So, but now I'm gonna just say this, the teacher was trying to give that student every opportunity. So we are trying to make it clear that untimed doesn't mean all day and night. So there need to be some parameters around it. Okay, questions?
Anybody? Yes.
I have a question about the fifth grade English language arts test. The writing portion
Yes.
at the end, is it still like written response?
So there's no more February writing tests. That's all changed. But
That's
it
not
is
in any
part.
window.
Yeah, there's no window for that, but it is still a part of our standards, so it has to be assessed. What we have done, I think, is a nice compromise. Would you wanna expand?
Yes, so, because we, number one, we do also need multi-measures when we look at an assessment that's going to meet the quality requirements for peer review. But aside from that, we do have writing in our standards, so we all know that part of writing is producing, is writing. So we wanted to be able to do that, but we also know that that is the most time-consuming part of assessments, to have open response, and it's also the most expensive because they have to be hand-scored. So trying to kind of reach a balance and meeting with a lot of our ELA people. So 3, 4, 6, 7, we're doing with multiple choice.
Embedded in the reading test.
Or in the English language arts test. And then 5, 8, and 10, we're having a constructed response, so you'll have the passages. Eventually, these passages may be used for some reading too, but right now for writing. So we're linking them together as we move forward. So they are a constructed response, 5, 8, and 10.
Did you talk about Lexels and Quantiles yet?
I did.
Okay, okay, I just wanna make sure.
Yep.
So that is gonna be another form of, that comparability that I think will be helpful, and also it is going to be something that I think as we think about, like for instance, not timing our tests, yet in 11th grade, we're gonna give everyone the ACT in its time, and those are, results that are able to be used throughout, the country for those kids, either to get into high skill in Oklahoma, high skill, high industry demand programs in career tech with a top-notch math score, or if they are going college bound. Math is the area that we have the greatest need for remediation support. Only about 49% of our kids that graduate from a high school diploma go on to college or career through career tech. That is staggeringly young. We have got to change that, so we believe that we can help with giving that 11th grade ACT again this year, and we want going forward, that is important, but I think it's also important to remember, if we were to move away from
Mine
like
are
what
gone.
we did or did
We
this
put them
year
all out.
in 10th grade, and it
People
may
took
be
them.
Yeah, there's 42.
Is this all we have left?
No, we have 2 boxes.
that test is timed. So remember that when you make a decision this year about how you will set kind of expectations in your district, it might be wise to talk about this test, is like a district policy on how much time you want to give, and then you can accommodate and do what you want, as you would normally do. But this might be a way to help get them prepared for what they're going to face again in the ACT, and then if ACT is what we use, then it will be in accountability with our A through F system, those results, okay?
And you know that you can always call us, we're always available. Our assessment people are interviewing DTCs, so you probably are in communication with us now, so we look forward to talking to you some more.
So if you want to go to the website, just go to the State Department site, the assessment page, and there's a link for the survey. We'd love to hear from you. Even if you don't have to fill out everything. If you just want to go to the comment section, you're welcome to do that too. And thanks everybody in the room for the overflow.
And if you want extra books, they're all yours.
And don't leave your phone.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Awesome. Thank you. You sure can. There you go. I have it right here. It doesn't work? Oh, yeah.
Anyone else that's there you go. Thank you. so you know for next time.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for letting us know. Sorry about that.
Sir,
Yes, ma'am.
if the school's on block, and a student who's trying to start the 10th grade this year has already had Algebra 1 and Geometry and scored advanced, and now they're a sophomore, and they're going to be in Algebra 2, and the second block, Algebra 3, what do they do?
Are they still going to be classified as a grade 10? Then they'll take the test.
And do they take it like, at what time of the year?
Everyone will take it at the same time. We only have one window.
See, I couldn't see any of that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, there'll only be one
And
window.
when is it in spring?
It's in spring. Everyone will take the test in spring. So it's all right in April, and so there's no connection for the grade 10 to 8th.
Hey, thank you guys for all being here. You probably feel already this morning you've been polled to death. If you haven't been in one that used a lot of polling, it's because assessment and accountability, we are using the information that you are going to be, we hope, sharing with us today. We have just some standard things we need to ask, and some of the feedback we've received is, I could have done this online. Well, okay, yes, except we want to expound and talk about it a little bit as we hear different comments from different parts of the state. And the other thing that we want is there are some that have said, well, a lot of these are asked in a way that force us to choose just certain direction. A lot of that is because of either state law or what we know is coming with the federal regulations on accountability with ESSA. So if you can just have a little understanding on that, and we hope you can get through some of these questions, so as we go, you can have opportunities to just interject and just say, here's why I answered like this, and that type of thing. Then, I'm gonna turn it over to Matt. We'll be doing something kind of similar, but it'll be a little bit broader over the lunch hour for the ESSA engagement piece, stakeholder feedback, and there it will be a lot more conversational. So I'm not gonna take up any more time, okay? But I'll step back in maybe a little later. Thank you.
Thanks. All right. Welcome to Accountability under ESSA. My name is Matt Morgan. I am the Assistant Director of Accountability at the State Department of Ed. And we're going to go over a few things today. I'm going to start giving you a brief introduction to what the requirements for accountability under ESSA. We're going to go over a timeline, and then we're going to jump into poll. And we're going to get some information, basic demographic information. Then we're going to do some fact and fiction to discuss more of the requirements under ESSA. And then we're going to get into the meat of the poll, which will be asking you guys your opinions on how the accountability system should be set up. And we're going to combine your responses with responses from all the other sessions across the state. We've got 16 sessions that we will be doing. So this is number 7. And so we will be combining all those results together to inform the decisions being made on the new accountability system. So we're going to start out with ESSA requirements. So ESSA requires Oklahoma to put in place a new accountability system that includes annual determinations for all public schools based on interim progress towards long-term goals on multiple indicators for the school overall and for each ESEA subgroup. Now, oh yeah, sorry. There we go, thank you. There is more of a focus on subgroups under ESSA than there was previously, which was more, the subgroups were more things that you would look at for AMOs. This is now going to be pulled into the report card proper, kind of. And this has to happen by the fall of 2017. And there are 5 things that are required under ESSA for accountability. The first is annual assessments, which may include a measure
Okay,
of growth.
so one thing, let me give just a little bit of an overview about ESSA. Does everybody know what ESSA is? Okay, it stands for Every Student Succeeds Act, and it replaced No Child Left Behind. So it funds primarily Title I. It has some other things that are included, including some dollars for state assessment. But it funds a number of programs that, for example, support English language learners, high poverty students. So this is the target. So what really this accountability system that's required under federal law, what it really is for is to help identify those schools who are struggling the most, who are low performing, and it often because what? They have high poverty. They have a lot of ELL students. These are the students that are often require more resources, more support in their learning. And so that is why the federal dollars are targeted there. So an accountability system is to determine which are the lowest performing schools. The law requires us to identify the 5% of our schools that are struggling the most, and that allows us to focus specific dollars for school improvement. So originally the intent was really to be supportive of schools and help those schools that really needed the additional funding. So think of accountability in those terms. How do we identify the schools that are, they're really doing great, they're out here, and then those schools that are really struggling? So how do we differentiate those? How do we know high quality, struggling, low performing?
And in case you don't know, this is Dr. Katie Dunlap. She is the Deputy Superintendent of Assessment and Accountability. So, as we said, the first of the 5 requirements under ESSA are annual assessments, which may include a measure of growth. The second one is graduation rates for high schools. We have another statewide academic indicator for elementary and middle schools. English language proficiency for English language learners. Previously, you would have seen this under the AMAOs, but now, once again, it will be brought into the report card system. And the last one is at least one additional statewide indicator of school quality or student success. This could be a whole host of things, including climate, school safety, student engagement, educator engagement, post-secondary readiness. So that's just a few examples of what it could be.
So these are research-based. They say often these are the kind of indicators that separate high-quality schools from struggling or low-performing schools. So we, however, do have to include things like annual assessments, but we may also include growth with that if we choose to. We also have to do graduation rates. We do that now, 4-year cohort, but we'll add something. I'm getting ahead a little bit. So now they have also added English language proficiency for English learners. And many of you know this was assessed previously. What is our assessment for English language learners? WIDA, Access WIDA, yeah. And so we've been doing this, but it's really been under Title III. So now it's the accountability is moved over. It's become a very clear indicator of schools that are struggling or low performing sometimes is our English language learners. So that is now an indicator that's required. And then the 5th one gives us a lot more flexibility. And that's one of the things we'll be trying to get some input on, when we're looking at student success and school quality.
Definitely. And I also want to include the fact that, when we say annual assessments, which may include a measure of student growth, there are multiple ways to measure growth. And it's possible that there is the possibility of including multiple different measures of growth depending on what the state decides.
And in fact, do any of you know Jennifer Stegman? I know she did some work here. Yeah, she did some work in this area. And she is actually at a school district now, but she is working some with us this month. And she's running simulations, for example, if we use this growth model, what would happen? If we use with our data. If we use this growth model, what would happen? And really, these are the kinds of things that we need to have time to do, which we don't have that much time, having said that. But we really need to see what happens when you use all these different factors together.
So speaking of not having much time, here's our timeline. No, it was a perfect segue. So we'll start off with the upcoming report card, A through F, for the 15-16 school year. Nothing changes. Everything is staying the same as we've calculated for the last few years. We are finishing out the accountability cycle with the previous assessments and everything. Everything stays the same through fall of 2016. So from now until December of 2016, we're working with stakeholder groups like groups here, business leaders, legislators, and parents, teachers, school districts to inform our decision for selecting what we're going to use for our accountability plan, and developing this accountability plan. That plan has to be approved by the state board of ed and sent to the legislature for their approval by December of 2016. So by the end of the year, and this is again, and you'll probably hear me say a couple times during the presentation. This is as everything stands now. These are based on federal regulations, and what we have currently in place. So
House Bill 3218 requires it puts us December 16 for us to have an accountability plan to go to the legislature. So this is what's really interesting is that House Bill 3218 requires us to develop and propose a new assessment system, a new accountability system, and new high school graduation requirements. So the state board is going to be making all these recommendations, and so we have all these requirements to conduct studies and bring experts in and look at, what are some of the best ways that we can have and develop a good accountability system. So,
all while implementing the current accountability system as well, which is still in state law as it stands today. So the current accountability system, until we expect the next session, is still state law.
and the one thing I would say about the state law is that if they turn down what we propose, what the board proposes, and we're getting, believe me, the governor's office, legislature, and everybody are involved in this. But if it gets over to the full legislature and for some reason they decide to turn it down, then I guess we revert back to A through F.
Unless something else
As it is now.
change, unless
They
they pick something else and then pass that, then we would be
So
whatever that may
we
be.
can't, we're telling you we want all this input, what we want to propose, but nothing is sure until the legislature acts on it now.
Well, and hopefully with your support and with your input, we will be able to propose something that we will be able to stand behind, and we'll have you guys to be able to stand behind it as well, to take to the legislators and say, the state has spoken, here's what has been proposed. So that way there's a little bit more weight behind that.
I think Superintendent Hoffmeister's goal is to be sort of like the standards that have had so much input across the state, so much support, that even though the legislature has got some pressure to not accept the standards, in the end they went ahead and actually, in this case, they just didn't do anything, which made them become law. So I think that we're trying to do the same process where we have enough consensus and support that we can go forward with a better plan than what we currently have.
So what that means is that the technical requirements, assuming everything is approved, the technical requirements of the new plan will be implemented the beginning of 2017 through the fall of 2017. So that is the 16-17 report card will be based on new assessments, and it will be a new accountability system. The preliminary report cards will be released in fall of that year, and before December 31st, 2017, or no later than December 31st, 2017, we are required to release the final report card. So that is our timeline for what we have coming up, and that's why it's vital that we get your opinions on how everything should be set up. So to get your opinions, we are going to use Poll Everywhere. If you were in the general session, I know that they discussed this. You may have been in a previous session today where they discussed it. You have a couple options. You can either use text messaging, or you can use the browser on your phone. If you use the browser on your phone, you're going to go to pollev.com/. /engage. And it'll have a link on there, but don't worry about clicking the link. You'll just be answering the poll directly in your text messages. Correct.
I always want to click on the link and see.
Yeah. So I'm going to jump over to the poll.